Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Tuesdays. A little bit of preliminary. After the show today, after the debate, we will be live with a second show. So I'm live with you right now, a little bit after 3 o'clock Eastern. We will be live tonight. The minute that the debate ends, I will be with all of you for a special OutKick the show reaction to Trump versus Kamala debate. Again, the moment the show ends, the show, meaning the debate, the moment that ends, it looks like it's going to be around 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, 8:30 Mountain, 7:30 Pacific. As soon as that ends, if you get on at Clay Travis on Twitter, at OutKick, you will be able to see me reacting. I will have a yellow legal pad, like always, with all of my notes done from the debate. I will not listen or react to anybody else's reaction to the debate. I will do for you what we did after the June 27th debate, immediately react to what might be the only debate that is going to be taking place between Trump and Kamala. Again, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, 9:30 Central, 8:30 Mountain. You be there, I will be here, and we will be ready to go. I'm going to dive into the NFL weekend that was. I'm going to talk about the Tyreek Hill traffic stop that has turned into a viral moment. I will analyze the videos that I have seen so far. Deshaun Watson has more allegations, and I'll tell you what I think about the Trump-Kamala debate and what we should expect going forward. But first, I want to tell you Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With Prize Picks, you against the number, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Free win this week, Caleb Williams. He gets 1 passing yard. You get hooked up with 1 free square. I'm going to give you 3 more picks on Thursday, and we will hopefully be able to cash a 10-to-1 payout. We missed a 10-to-1 payout last week by 1 toe, basically. If the Ravens come down in the back of the end zone without the toe on the line, we win. Instead, we lost. But that is what is going on there. Prize Picks, best way to win real money this football season. Which players going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than a minute and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long with Prize Picks. Again, going to give you picks on Thursday. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fun. You can pay $5 play, and you can get back $50. That's $5 earns you $50 in free play. Prize Picks. Get signed up now. $50 bonus. You don't have to win to get your $50 bonus. Again, play $5. You win $50 just by signing up. Guaranteed. Use code OutKick on Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's start with the Tyreek Hill story, which has overwhelmed a lot of the NFL reactions from what we saw. Well, actually, let's start with Monday Night Football. San Francisco 49ers were the best team in the NFC last year. We get late notice that Christian McCaffrey, who is the single most explosive player probably on offense outside of wide receiver in the NFL, that he's not going to play because of tenderness in the hamstring, I think, or the calf and the Achilles, something along those lines. He's not going to play. What happens? San Francisco 49ers come out and still dominate. Why did that happen? Because San Francisco 49ers are still, I believe, the best team in the NFC. And it was good to see Aaron Rodgers back on the field. He looked good on the first drive for the Jets. After that moment, the Jets looked overwhelmed by the 49ers. I don't think that's as much of an indictment of the Jets or Aaron Rodgers or anybody on that squad as it is they have the best team in the NFC. They still do. I think they should have won the Super Bowl last year, particularly given how they had the lead early. But to me, 49ers still the best team in the NFC. All right, I'm going to go back into games in a moment. But the Dolphins got a win over the Jags on the field, 80-yard touchdown pass from Tua to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, I believe, had 130 receiving yards on the touchdown. He celebrated by pretending to be handcuffed. There now that I have seen, and Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there are 3 different videos from police officers that have been released so far. One is Tyreek Hill driving at what appears to be a rather high rate of speed, and the motorcycle cop turning and chasing after him to pull him over. Then the interaction between the police officer and Tyreek Hill, which was released first. And then a third one where Tyreek Hill says, basically, this is what it's like to be a black man in America. And the police officer or officers say, we aren't white, they're Hispanic, it appears, that were involved in this incident. Now, it's gone mega viral. What is my take? First of all, there is no perfect actor here. As is the case in most videos of all of life, no one is perfect and the hero, and no one is imperfect and the villain. Okay? So let's begin there with what we saw from this police behavior. Now, it's hard to tell exactly how fast Tyreek Hill is driving in the stadium zone with a bunch of cones up that suggest that it needs to be slower rates of speed. But if you watch the video, Tyreek Hill drives past the police officer and then also passes a bunch of other cars. The police officer has to go very fast to catch up with him. I don't think there's any doubt that Tyreek Hill was speeding and was going at a higher rate of speed than anybody else around him. In other words, I don't think there's an argument that the pull over of Tyreek Hill was in some way unjustified. I think he was speeding. I think certainly he was worthy of getting a speeding ticket. Now, as someone who has been pulled over for speeding a lot, I bet I'm in the 95th percentile for most times pulled over in a variety of different states for speeding. I tend to drive fast. I don't like when there is not a lot of traffic. I don't like the fact that you can't drive fast. I go fast. I've been pulled over, candidly, for speeding in like 8 states. I'm not even kidding about this. So I have been pulled over a lot by police officers in a variety of jurisdictions. I've even joked about this on my drives down to the beach in Florida. I think I've built some of the lower Alabama schools where they have all these speed traps. I mean, I'm talking about like you're going 45 and suddenly the speed drops to 25. I mean, just crazy speed traps. I'm not talking about going like 120 miles an hour. I'm talking about the speed changes by 30 miles an hour in the space of like a quarter mile, and it's almost impossible not to be speeding. All right. So I've been pulled over a lot. Reason why I give you that background. Every single time that I get pulled over, I don't have tinted windows. Officer walks up. I've got my hands on the wheel, trying not to draw substantial attention to myself. I roll down the window, and I give the officer my license and registration. Sometimes in the, 30 years that I've been driving, sometimes in the 30 years that I've been driving, I have either gotten cops who are jerks, or, this may stun some of you, sometimes I've been kind of a jerk. Because if you get pulled over in a speed trap, you're oftentimes not predisposed to be very favorable towards the police officer. That's the reality. Even if you might have been speeding, if you've ever been pulled over in a speed trap jurisdiction, you understand that you might not be in a great relationship or a great mood, and that might characterize your relationship with the officer. Sometimes police officers have been jerks to me. And what I tell my kids, and this is what I told them my whole life, comply with police officers. I've got a 16-year-old that I'm teaching how to drive right now. I have told him, if you ever get pulled over by a police officer, don't behave outrageously with them. Even if you don't think there is a constitutional justification for what they are telling you to do, comply with the police officers. I'm a lawyer. We've got the resources to get you lawyers. You can fight back against what you consider to be inappropriate police behavior after you survive a police stop. So I'm giving you all that background for this reason. Tyreek Hill was pulled over based on the evidence, it seems quite clear to me, for speeding. He was then asked to roll down his window and keep his window rolled down. He has tinted windows. Some of you out there who haven't spent much time thinking about this, or you just reflexively decide which side you want to line up on a viral video, the reason why the window needs to be down is the police officer, given that the window is tinted, needs to be able to know that he's not in danger, that there's not some weapon being grabbed inside of the vehicle. If Tyreek Hill had rolled down his window and merely left his window down, nothing from that point forward is likely to have occurred. That is, he wouldn't have been pulled out of the car. There wouldn't have been any detention on the side of the road. There wouldn't have been the chaos that arose. So my advice to all of you out there is, even if you think you're in the right, even if you think you have done absolutely nothing wrong, when a police officer pulls you over, pull over, put your hands on the wheel, comply with all the instructions, and don't antagonize or exacerbate the tension of what might already be a tension-filled situation for an officer. So, if Tyreek Hill had merely kept his window down, there would not have been an issue. Now, did the officer behave in an aggressive fashion in response to Tyreek Hill's aggression? Yes. Will he watch that on film of himself, the body camera, and probably think, hey, could I have dialed back my behavior to some extent in this interaction and made things a little bit better? Yes. I think it is the correct decision to have made, that everybody can always dial back the significance of any interaction, right, in terms of the aggression. But if I had to assess, and then, by the way, Tyreek Hill's refusing to roll down his window. They open the door. They pull him out. They put him on the ground, and they put him in cuffs. Do I think he needed to be cuffed? No. Do I think he needed to be held on to the ground? Not personally, okay? But if I had to assess blame here, Tyreek Hill is speeding and refusing to comply with the instructions of an officer. If there are 10 points of blame to assign here, I probably go Tyreek Hill 7.5 or 8, police officer 2.5 or 2. That's the way that I would assess, or whatever the math is. 2.5 or 2, I think, is right? Police officer 20 or 25% responsible. Tyreek Hill 70, 75%, 80% responsible. However you want to assess. That's roughly my analysis of this situation. Okay. Now, why is this a huge story? Because of Tyreek Hill's behavior. If he had just gotten a speeding ticket, none of us would have ever known. And I would also point out that they're going to try to turn this into a racial situation. Tyreek Hill himself already did it on camera when he said, this is just what happens to a black man in America. It's just not true. Scottie Scheffler did far less driving to the PGA Championship to golf, and he was actually arrested and taken to the Louisville jail and charged with crimes. This is where the crazy town police has a real difficulty in explaining why Tyreek Hill basically got let go and went and played football and had no consequences. Scottie Scheffler actually got arrested, taken to the Louisville jail. He had to stretch to get ready for his golf round, and they charged him with multiple crimes until they finally dropped them. So, look, what this reflects is this can happen to anybody, which is why I come back to my standard operating procedure here, the thing that I tell my kids as well: comply with the request of a police officer. If your rights are being violated, then you can later, the great thing about America is, apply those rights through the legal system. What you can't do is decelerate a situation after you have accelerated it and made everybody more likely to be in danger. Now, the usual suspects have shown up, like Jamel Hill, and she said, hey, and I'm paraphrasing, it's important to know that the owner of the Miami Dolphins is one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters. And what does that even have to do with anything? If anybody wanted to get Tyreek Hill arrested, it would not be the Miami Dolphins, who were paying him $120 million, $30 million this year, over $1 million per game. It actually would have been the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because if he could have gotten Tyreek Hill arrested, the Jags probably would have won that game. So the only person who has an incentive to have anybody arrested that owns a football team on Sunday is the guy playing against Tyreek Hill, not the guy who's paying Tyreek Hill. Of anybody, that's who they want to take the field. So it's important to just apply basic logic. I understand that Trump has broken a lot of people's brain, but to see Tyreek Hill get pulled over for speeding and pulled out of his car for refusing to roll down his window and somehow think, oh, how can I make this about Donald Trump, is banana land, bonker land, insanity from the usual suspects on the left. So that is my take on the Tyreek Hill incident. He's not a hero. If I had to assess blame, I would say he's about 75% responsible for this, since if he wasn't speeding, none of this interaction would have ever happened. And if he had just rolled down his window and left it down, there would have been no further incident. He would have probably gotten a speeding ticket, and none of us would have ever had any idea that this had happened at all. But for those out there trying to turn this into a race-related issue, including Tyreek Hill and the usual suspects in the media, I would just point out Scotty Scheffler did way less and got treated way worse than Tyreek Hill, which really undercuts the idea that somehow the awful racist police officers were trying to mistreat Tyreek Hill. If you don't want to get pulled over, don't commit a moving violation in your car. Don't speed in an area like that. And you won't have to worry about it. So that's my take on Tyreek Hill in general. I want to mention this. I want to go back to it. I said I want to talk about the NFL. Yesterday, and I shared the video, I think Will Levis threw one of the dumbest interceptions that I have ever seen a quarterback throw. Certainly one of the dumbest interceptions I've ever seen a quarterback throw in the NFL. He's going down to the ground. He flips the ball out. It's picked off. It ends up costing the Titans the game. But you know what happened after that game? Will Levis had to go to a press conference and directly answer media questions about why he had made one of the most boneheaded plays in the history of the quarterback position. That's a play. My eighth grader is playing eighth grade tackle football. I think there's a good chance his quarterback would have gotten pulled for that move. I think a lot of you who have kids or are aware of high school football are like, yeah, quarterback might get pulled there. Quarterback might get pulled in college. It is an indefensibly dumb decision that was made. But Will Levis still had to show up after the game and answer questions. Deshaun Watson, I'm going to get back to him, had to show up and answer questions after a disastrous performance from him. Daniel Jones had to show up and answer questions after an awful performance from him. Every quarterback has to show up after a game and answer whatever media questions there are about what he just did on the field. Every coach has to do the same. Why do we require coaches and players to be more responsive to the media than Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris is going to be in the debate tonight. She has not had one single press conference since she became the nominee for president of the United States. How is it possible that we require more honesty, more forthrightness, more examination of our starting quarterbacks in college and the NFL, all of whom at decent-sized programs have to talk to the media at least once, often twice every week, and every coach than we do of someone who's trying to get the most important job in the country? I just think that's a question that really should be hammered home. as you're watching your favorite NFL team or your favorite college team, and then you're watching the press conferences that come right after. How is it possible that we have never, ever had that become an issue for Kamala Harris, and that most people won't even raise it as an issue? It seems downright insane to me that wouldn't be the case. Deshaun Watson, I just mentioned him. There are new allegations that are out there. I just saw the headline that the NFL is going to look into these new allegations against Deshaun Watson. Headline, and we got it up at OutKick, but I'm reading from, I'm actually on the front page of ESPN. The NFL says it's reviewing a civil lawsuit filed Monday against Deshaun Watson, accusing him of sexual assault and battery when he was a member of the Texans. We're reviewing the complaint. We'll look into the matter under the personal conduct policy, not looking at commissioner's exempt list, as there have been no formal charges. League's review has just begun. Lawsuit says Watson met the woman at a Houston restaurant and bar, got her phone number, and attempted to have her meet him at the Houston Galleria for a date. She instead agreed to a date at her apartment. She said Watson had trouble finding her apartment. I'm reading from the ESPN report. Began aggressively yelling and screaming at her on the phone, saying he, quote, didn't have time for this. Lawsuit alleges while applying makeup in her bathroom, the woman came out and found Watson completely naked on her bed, lying face down on his stomach. She then asked him to massage his butt, and she says she rubbed his back. He then turned over, quote, continued to demand a massage, and said he wanted it from his knees to the groin. She said she wasn't a masseuse. Watson asked her what she wanted to do instead, and then he took her clothes off, and it says, quote, penetrated her vagina without consent, implicit or explicit, then said that she had to escape. Watson, 28 years old, had an 11-game suspension after more than 24 women accused him of sexual assault. He settled 23 of the 24 lawsuits filed against him. This is unrelated to the rest of those lawsuits. Now, here's what I would say in general. When all those other lawsuits were filed, people thought that Deshaun Watson was still a really good quarterback. Right now, Deshaun Watson looks like the worst quarterback in the NFL with the worst contract in the NFL. So long as your talent exceeds your problems, people will make a lot of excuses for you. Once your talent is exceeded by your problems, people start to say, hey, maybe we don't need this guy anymore. I wonder on some level whether the Browns could actually use the latest allegations as a way to try to get out of Deshaun Watson's contract. They still owe him over $100 million, all guaranteed. Could they use this as evidence to allow them to get out of their contract? I would be nervous about this if I were Deshaun Watson. If he were a really good player, people would make excuses for him like they did when the 24 women made their allegations in the past. The Browns still gave him the most guaranteed dollars in the history of the NFL. Now, I think it's a fair question to ask whether or not the Browns and the NFL, to a certain degree, are going to continue to stand behind Deshaun Watson. Because I watched that game against the Cowboys. He was absolutely atrocious. It was embarrassing how bad he was. It's like he hadn't played football ever before. And look, I don't think the Browns were good at blocking for him, or their other offensive talent in some way looked incredible. But I do think that it is kind of staggering how bad he looks and how much worse he continues to get. All right, let's run through some of these NFL reactions. I think I said on Monday that Monday is going to typically be an all-football show. I think there's a lot of chance that Tuesdays will too, because I'm probably going to do a lot of NFL talk on Tuesdays. I think basically we've only talked about the NFL today. Thursday, we will have the betting show with Kelly Stewart, Kelly in Vegas, the Fade. And on Wednesdays, you will get my college football picks up on OutKick. On Thursdays, you will get my NFL picks up on OutKick. And then on Thursday afternoon, evening, we'll have the gambling special show, just so for those of you out there who are particularly focused on this story and on the schedule and how we're going to break everything down. Again, reminder, I will be live tonight right after the debate ends for a special OutKick show. Just my yellow legal pad, the notes that I've jotted down watching. Bills, I think Josh Allen, probably second best quarterback in the NFL. Led his team back from a deficit. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't think there's really an argument for anybody else other than Josh Allen as the second best quarterback in the NFL. In other words, if we just had a straight quarterback draft, I think number one overall would be Patrick Mahomes. I think number two overall would be Josh Allen. I think that is highly, highly likely. Patriots got the win over the Bengals. There was a debate about whether Joe Burrow might be the second best quarterback in the NFL. I don't know what's happened with Joe Burrow, but the overall performance of Burrow over the past couple of years has just descended into kind of mediocrity, especially with Jamar Chase. I know they got contract issues and everything else associated there, but it just doesn't feel to me like Joe Burrow has advanced in any kind of significant way over the last couple of years. I know he's had some injury issues, but when I watched that game between the Patriots and the Bengals, I mean, for the Bengals to have Joe Burrow and only put up 10 points, something's not right in Cincinnati. Vikings dominated the Giants. We talked about this earlier. Sam Darnold, congratulations. He may play well with the Vikings. Vikings are always ignored, always the underdog. Daniel Jones coming off of an injury. It's ugly for him in New York. I don't think it's going to pan out for him. We talked yesterday about the Bears. Caleb Williams basically did nothing, got the win because Will Levis in year 2 was actually worse than Caleb Williams in year 1. That is not ideal. Let me be honest with you guys. Saints destroyed the Panthers. I really thought Bryce Young was going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. If you had asked me to compare him to somebody, I would have said Drew Brees because I knew he was undersized. But the way he played at Alabama, the way he stayed in the pocket and kept his eyes down the field, I thought he was going to perform at a high level. Right now, I feel like he's basically finished in the NFL. And I know the Panthers have not built a good support structure around him, but at some point, a truly good quarterback demonstrates that he should have been the number one overall pick, even without a lot of good scenarios surrounding him. I mean, typically when you go to a team number one overall, it's because they failed epically for several years. He's a disaster. And the Panthers organization at large is a mess as well. So I'm not, again, trying to just put everything on him, but it's ugly. Steelers got the win where they kicked 6 field goals. Suddenly Justin Fields has to come in. It was an ugly game. This is one I got wrong gambling. I thought Kirk Cousins would perform better than he did, given what they're spending. That was an ugly debut for the Falcons and for Kirk Cousins. We already talked some about the Dolphins coming back and getting the win over the Jags. I love watching Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I think the Dolphins have one of the most fun teams out there. But, come on. Again, I think 75% to 80% of the responsibility for the traffic stop, which has overwhelmed everything surrounding the actual game, was on Tyreek Hill. Texans, most entertaining game probably of the day. Go back and forth quite a lot with the Colts. Anthony Richardson against C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, year 2. How much of a step will he take forward? He was incredible in year 1. He's pretty solid. And then Anthony Richardson made the one incredible throw down the field in stride. He's still very early in his learning process. I think Anthony Richardson's got some Will Levis in him, and that both are very supremely talented throwers of the football, but they're not consistent. And the ones that they miss are as big or bigger than the ones that they hit. So we'll see how he pans out. Jim Harbaugh, I got this one right. I thought they would get the win over the Raiders. Antonio Pierce, the moment looked too big for him with the decision to punt late. Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, I think is a good combo. I think the Chargers will be a playoff team this year. Seahawks get the win over the Broncos. Broncos have just kind of fallen into irrelevance, which is hard to believe given how good they were for some time. Bo Nix, 42 pass attempts for only 138 yards, 2 interceptions for Denver. That's the reason why they didn't get the win. Geno Smith, example of a guy that was kind of found on the scrap heap and has ended up doing pretty well, even though he's over 30 now. Has had a good run with the Seahawks since Russell Wilson left. Cowboys, as we mentioned earlier, complete domination of the Browns. I asked the question, will the Browns continue to stand behind Deshaun Watson? Remember when everybody thought that Dak was the Texas quarterback who was going to make everybody unhappy? He didn't even have to do much because the Cowboy defense dominated so much against Deshaun Watson. 45 attempts for Deshaun Watson for just 169 yards, 2 interceptions, got the crap beaten out of him. 4th down play to me, Deshaun Watson, an example of him just losing his ability to make solid decisions. 4th down, he gets tackled on a sack, doesn't even put the ball in the air. He just doesn't seem to be seeing the field right or feeling very well either. Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, tough blow for the Browns. They draft Baker. He can't do anything. They decide that he's not the future of the franchise. He goes down to Tampa Bay and just catches lightning in a bottle. Nearly 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, best passer rating of the day that I saw from anyone. Baker has remade his career in Tampa Bay. Congrats to him. And then the Lions against the Rams, really entertaining game. Matthew Stafford takes the loss going back against his old team. Jared Goff gets the win. That, to me, we already talked about the 49ers and the Jets. So as an NFL breakdown, what do I expect to see tomorrow in the debate? We're going to do a live reaction show, the debate tonight. I think this debate will end like most debates do, which is the equivalent of a prize fight where both sides turn to the corner and raise their hands in exultation. I think that is where we are headed. I got a couple of calls to jump on right now, but I appreciate all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. See you back here tonight at 9:30 Eastern.